I am Vitaly Pardim. On the eve of the second round of the presidential elections in Romania, Politico conducted an investigation that reveals a genuine attempt at a coup d'etat in Romania following the annulment of the results of the first round of the previous presidential elections in that country. As is known, the winner of that first round was the far-right candidate Călin Georgescu, who had every chance to win in the second round as well and become the new leader of the Romanian state. After it became known that the results of the first round of elections had been annulled and a new vote would be held in the country, one of Georgescu's supporters, Horatiu Potra, a former bodyguard of the Emir of Qatar and a mercenary in Africa, organized a real march on Bucharest, hoping to overthrow the current government. Potra's attempts were thwarted by the Romanian security forces. However, this was not just a declaration, but a genuine attempt at a coup d'etat, moreover financed from unknown sources. During searches of Potra's house, Romanian security forces discovered caches containing millions of dollars and military equipment. In other words, we are talking about a well-organized group prepared for a possible seizure of power. At the same time, Politico notes not only that Potra is an adventurer who didn't really understand which country he was in or what era he was acting in, there is evidence of his close ties with Russian security agencies. At any rate, during his time in Africa, and this is not surprising either, as you might expect, because Călin Georgescu was accused of potentially using funding from Russia during his election campaign, which, according to the law, was not properly declared. As is known, Georgescu's success was largely due to the campaign he ran on social media, especially on the social network TikTok. And it was obvious that such a campaign, which led to the unprecedented and unexpected rise in the ratings of the far-right candidate, unnoticed by sociologists, could not have happened without a significant amount of funding. And by the way, without the creation of an algorithm that would help potential Romanian voters learn from Georgescu even things they might not have wanted to know. Horatiu Potra himself, of course, firmly denies any involvement whatsoever in a coup, saying that, in his view, it is better to break the law and live than to live by the law and perish. But the main point in this story is not so much that Potra was planning to help Călin Georgescu become president of Romania through a coup, but rather that as soon as tomorrow, another far-right candidate, George Simion, could become the new head of the Romanian state, having effectively inherited all of Georgescu's ratings during the new election campaign. Simion himself, in a conversation with journalists, stated that he does not know Potra and called all the talk about a possible coup attempt nothing more than fireworks. And these statements by the far-right candidate can be compared to those made by the then and current President of the United States, Donald Trump, regarding the attempted storming of the Capitol. He never admitted that it was a genuine attempt at a coup d'etat and pardoned its participants immediately after his triumphant and scandalous return to the White House. Therefore, Potra's actions may not simply be comparable to the attempt to storm the Capitol. These actions could have exactly the same outcome. If George Simion becomes the president of Romania, and he has every chance of winning in tomorrow's second round of the presidential election, it is quite possible that he will recall his acquaintance with Potra, and Potra's attempt to seize control of Romania's state institutions and prevent the annulment of the elections will be reinterpreted as a heroic act, one that was precisely aimed at saving Romanian democracy. As is known, even on the eve of the first round of the presidential election, George Simeon promised to bring Calin Georgescu back to power, who continues to be a much more authoritative leader of the far-right forces in Romania than the country's possible new president. Therefore, if Simeon does indeed win, the possibility of early parliamentary elections cannot be ruled out, during which far-right parties would establish control over the legislative body. Calin Georgescu would form a new Romanian government and, as head of the cabinet, would become the actual leader of the country, while George Simeon would perform ceremonial duties under the much more popular and influential Calin Georgescu, not only in Romania, but also among far-right politicians in general. As is well known, many influential supporters of the current American President Donald Trump have backed this former candidate for the presidency of Romania. They are working to paint the European continent in the brown color so dear to their hearts, and now, without any hesitation, are making gestures in European city squares that were commonplace in the 1930s. So it is quite possible that Horatio Ponta, who is now being called the organizer of the attempted coup in Romania, will, in just a few days or weeks, be declared the new Romanian president and a national hero of the country. And it will not be those who tried to overthrow the legitimate government who are held accountable before the law, but rather the security forces who managed to expose and stop the attempted coup in Romania. And as of today, such a turn of events in this country hardly seems like political fiction, given everything we know about the developments in the United States after the victory in the presidential election of the former head of state, the far-right politician Donald Trump, who, as we know, was directly involved in the attempt to storm the Capitol after the previous US presidential election. What we witnessed in the United States, which turned out to be a harbinger of a true collapse of democracy in that country, could unfold before our very eyes in Romania as well. All the more so because this state remains strategically important in terms of the Russian Federation's attempts to surround Ukraine, which Vladimir Putin despises, with a ring of hostile neighbors. And Romania plays one of the key roles in this. Thank you, friends. Stay tuned to this channel. Subscribe to it, follow me on my social media and on my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Donatella channels, which help support the development of this project. Make use of the sponsorship feature right here on YouTube. Peace to you all.